everyone, welcome back to my channel Get Cozy, or welcome if you're new here. 2 days ago, I finished the last page of my journal. I've been in this journal for 2.5 years, very consistently, so it feels like a really big accomplishment. This is the first journal I've ever really kept and stuck with diligently, and the first time that I've ever finished a notebook like this from front to back. Today, I am going to do a little bit of a flip through. I've done a flip through of my journal before, so I'm not going to spend too much time doing this. I also want to talk about what it feels like to finish this type of accomplishment. It feels very good in a lot of ways, but I also have some mixed feelings. Then I'm going to talk about the next book that I'm going to be using for my personal journal. I feel like it's kind of a big commitment because I do like writing in an A5 size, so it takes me a long time to get through it. Like I said, I've been in this notebook for 2.5 years, so I anticipate that whatever journal I choose next, I'm going to be in it for over a year. So I'm going to talk about that and then also set up my new journal here on camera with you. So let's talk about my finished journal first. Okay, so my journal is an A5 size and I do have a DIY leather cover wrapping around it. It's like the trifold style. And I'm going to continue using this with my new notebook. And this is what it looks like on the inside. This notebook is a Hobonichi A5 graph notebook, and I found that it was a really, really great journal. Fountain pen friendly, which didn't really become important until my later use, like the second half of this notebook. But I didn't really love the cover of this. It's just that plain cheddar cheese yellow. This is what the A6 version looks like. This is how it looked. It's just not really my favorite. At the time, I don't think that I was really aware of the other cover styles that Hobonichi had, and I did get this, I think, directly from Hobonichi. I can't remember, it was so long ago. Anyway, so I painted like a moth on here, a butterfly, and it's okay. I've never really been in love with how this looked, but it's not really that big of a deal because I always kept it in some kind of cover. And anyway, so at least it muted down the yellow, but whenever I first started this journal, I did put a photo of my dog in here using the Canon IB printer. I got this around the time that I started this journal, and I've been using it ever since. I use it all of the time. It's a staple for my journaling, so I really love that. And then I do have kind of a cover page, and I don't really like this. This, like I said, was really my first journal, so I didn't really spend a lot of time trying to make this look nice. I just got some new washi, and so I just kind of randomly placed them here as like a border around a photo. I started to create an index and I wrote some intentions for the journal. And to be honest, I did not stick with the index. I don't really like how this looks. I don't really like these colors either. And while this is kind of like a nice idea, I don't think I'm going to include this in my new notebook. In my intentions, I'm basically just talking about why I wanted to journal. I was about to go through some major changes in my life and I wanted to document it, and I definitely did. So it is kind of nice to like go back and read on this. So I might do something that acknowledges some intentions in my next journal, but I don't really plan on having a layout like this, but I will be doing a cover page. And then this is what my first journal entry looks like. We went and saw The Boy and the Heron, and I put our ticket in there. This is my husband and I. And when I first started journaling, I was using this. This is a Uniball Jetstream multi-pen, and I've talked about this before, but I had a lot of issues with the Jetstream black ink cartridges in this notebook and on other notebooks, and I don't really know why that is. Never had any issues with the other colors. It seems very hit or miss because the one I have in here is working really well, but I've gone through like multiples of these refills that did not work well, so I don't really know why. And you can see that sometimes the writing was skipping and really faded, while other times it was really dark and saturated, so that was really annoying. When I first started, I had this little header with the date, put a box around it, I had an index, and then I had a piece of washi. And that is kind of a pattern that I continued doing, but it did start to look different with time. You can see here that I was writing the date kind of like in different ways because I was still trying to figure out what I liked. And then pretty early on, I started introducing a margin. I got that idea from Megan Rhiannon, and she just said that it helps to break up the page. And I definitely agree. Then my style evolved pretty quickly to start with a piece of washi and the date. You can see sometimes that I had the washi next to the date, sometimes I had it like right above to break up the page. And yeah, sometimes I would write a full page, sometimes half a page. So I continue to use a gel pen, but I pretty much gave up on this one with the black ink and switched over to these pens. These became my primary journaling pens. These are the Uni 1 gel pens, and I really liked using these. This one's just like a plain gray one, and this one is like a Studio Ghibli one, and I never had any issues with these cartridges, but I know some people did. I don't really know why there are so many mixed experiences for the Uni or Jetstream refills, because it really does seem like some people have issues with these, some people don't. I've never had issues with them. And then same thing with the refills for the multi-pen. So let me know down in the comments if you've had issues with the Uni Jetstream refills. Whenever they work, they're fantastic, but whenever they don't, it's really frustrating. I also used this very early on to write my headers and write my margins. So this is a Tombow Fudonosuke dual tip brush pen. I've talked about this before. It has a light gray side, which I was using a lot to write out the margin, and then it also has a black felt side, and I was using this to write the date. I got this around the time that I started journaling, and this is the same exact pen, so it is still going strong. Maybe the felt isn't quite as sharp as it used to be, but it still has ink. I still use this to write my headers and margins, so this is a staple. When I first started this notebook, I was about 5 months away from finishing graduate school. I did a PhD, and at that time, I was feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, and I was encouraged to journal, just to write down my thoughts, do it every day, maybe do it in the morning to write down my emotions, and then I could kind of put those away and compartmentalize so that I could focus on writing my thesis. And I actually found that to be incredibly helpful for my stress and anxiety, so much so that I continue to do that to this day. Back then, I was more so journaling, not quite daily, but almost daily. I feel like now I journal once or twice a week and do longer journaling sessions, but it just kind of really depends on how busy life is. So at the time when I started journaling, I was writing all about my stress and anxieties and looking forward to the future when I ended this notebook to see where I was going to be at in life, and I will get to that. I did end up finishing my PhD and I passed, so this is just some congratulations. And then, yeah, so I kind of settled into this kind of style where I would write the date, a line under it as like a header, and a piece of washi. And honestly, the washi, it's like nice decoration, but it also helps me to see when I'm starting a new layout. As you can see, sometimes I'm doing a full page, sometimes I'm doing half pages, and then I do have some entries that are multiple pages. So to have a piece of washi to just kind of document like continuation, I found to be really helpful. And then eventually things started to look a little bit more cohesive. Okay, so eventually I moved to California. And so this is just documenting that move. We made a road trip out of it. And then eventually I got my very first fountain pen. So this is my first entry with a fountain pen. At the time I didn't realize how big of a deal this was, but it did change my brain chemistry, and the rest of my writing is pretty much in fountain pen except maybe like one or two entries. So this was in 2025, and this was my husband and I. We went to the Hobonichi Techu event hosted by JetPens, so that was really fun. And then you can see that we had gone to the pen show. So I was writing about all of that, and this was my first journal entry of the fountain pen, and so that was with my Pelikan 140. It's a vintage pen, and I got an ink called Diamine Ochre to pair with it, so that's what I had written in. And for a little while, this was my only fountain pen. So any kind of fountain pen writing you see in the beginning is with the same Pelikan 140s. So I'm still using that Diamine Ochre color. Then I switched over to Sukio, and then I fell down the rabbit hole of getting more fountain pens. So that was what this is about. And then I have more ink colors as I accumulate more fountain pens and dive deeper into the hobby. So it just starts to look a little bit more fun. I also started writing in cursive when I started writing with fountain pens. So that is what my journaling style ended up looking like. And I think towards the end, I mean, all of this pretty much stayed consistent. My style kind of settled in towards the end of this. And so I plan to continue this type of style where I have a margin and some washi just to denote continuation. Yeah, this is the last entry, so kind of a long one. I decided to use my 140 as my last entry with Pelikan Blue Black. It's one of my favorite inks, and I don't know, I was feeling a little sentimental, so I wanted to use my first fountain pen to write with, and I really love writing with this pen. It's so much fun. So in my last entry, I was actually traveling, so I wrote it in a hotel, mostly because there's some sad things that have been going on this year and are still going on, and so I didn't want to write my last entry while I was sad. So I did it in a hotel while I was traveling because I was pretty happy at the time and I wanted to end on a somewhat positive note, even though I felt like I needed to document some of the sad things that have been going on. So yeah, that is the last page. And when I first got a fountain pen, I started to do some fountain pen testing in the very back here just to see how different inks looked, if they feathered or anything. And this paper was phenomenal with every single fountain pen. I never had issues with feathering or bleed through or anything like that. This paper does have some ghosting, but it's really not too bad. And honestly, it just made it feel very lived in. So this notebook has 288 pages, and that's 144 sheets. Pretty much every page got used. And so I do feel like that's a big accomplishment, especially being in here for so long, so consistently. So I feel really good about that. I think that I want to do that with every single notebook. I don't like to waste paper. I don't care if it's the middle of the year or what day of the week it is. I'm gonna go to the very end, at least that's my intention. I do feel good about finishing this. I feel also a little bit sad. When I first started this, like I mentioned, I started it because I was finishing my PhD and it was incredibly stressful. I had a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of pressure, a lot to do, and I would find myself kind of spiraling in the middle of the day, just thinking about all of the things I needed to get done, all of the pressure. And so starting to journal at that time was really, really beneficial for me. So I would journal in the morning, even if it was just to say like what I did the day before or what I plan to do today or how I'm feeling. I found it very helpful to kind of compartmentalize my emotions and to just let go of the negative emotions, get them down on paper, sit with them, and then move on. I found that the rest of my day was more productive when I did that. And eventually, I finished my PhD and I passed my defense, and that was really exciting. And because that was such a big life change, that meant that afterwards it was going to be time to get a job, and we ended up moving across country to do that. And so there's a lot of big life changes in that. And then after that, I started to deal with a lot of hardship. I can't go into detail about that today, but started to deal with some hardship that is still continuing to this day. And so I almost feel like I'm letting down the girl who started this journal, who was very optimistic and excited to finish my PhD and see what came next. And things kind of crashed and burned, I'm not gonna lie. I just feel a little bit sad about ending on such a sad note. And I think that the lesson here is with all of the mess and all of the sadness, there are still good times. And I did make sure to include a lot of good times in here. And that's just life. It's messy. Things don't go as we plan. So, yeah, anyway, I am ready to start a new chapter of my life and, be optimistic. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to take this out of here. And yeah, let's just kind of take a moment to appreciate how this feels. It's very thick and it does feel like a big portion of my life is documented here, and I do really love flipping back through this and seeing all the happy times and all of the memories. I don't think that I would remember them as well if I hadn't done that. Okay, so here comes the fun part of choosing my next notebook. I have 3 notebooks that are A5 size that are unused. I'm going to talk about this one in a minute. My plan was to use another Hobonichi A5 graph notebook. That's what I used previously. It felt like home. I really loved it. And this one specifically has such a beautiful cover. I got this from Hobonichi in my order from last year, so September 2025. So I kept this in the shrink wrap all the way until last week. So It's just been sitting unused. Before I moved into this, I wanted to confirm that it was fountain pen friendly just to make sure. And to my dismay, it is not. So I started a test page on the very back page, and you can see there's a lot of feathering going on, and this ink is very well behaved. So that was pretty abnormal, especially with the Pilot Kakuno. Pretty disappointing. Even Pilot Black has some feathering issues with a Pilot Kakuno with a fine nib. I don't want to play the game of wondering if this ink and pen is going to feather on this paper for the next 2.5 years I was planning to use this for. And then obviously I want to be able to use this front to back, and look at how bad that ghosting is. This is way worse than my previous notebook. Almost every single writing sample has bleed through. So I'm pretty disappointed about this because I've been holding on to this for so long. I'm in love with the cover and the artwork, but it's virtually unusable. I almost exclusively write with fountain pens. Writing with fountain pens helps me to stay consistent with my journaling because it gives me an excuse to use them. And so I'm not going to switch over to gel pens just to use this notebook. So I'm pretty gutted and disappointed. I talked about this on Instagram, and it seems like I'm not the only one who had this issue with this specific notebook. I did reach out to Hobonichi asking if it was possible to get store credit or a refund or a replacement, and I knew that, from September to July of the next year, that is a really long time. And so I figured because of that, it would be unlikely to get any kind of replacement or store credit or refund. Most businesses have a refund policy of 30 to 90 days, and this was well outside of that. And in their email, they said that they're not going to be able to provide store credit, a refund, or a replacement for other reasons that I found to be kind of frustrating. So I sent a picture of the feathering here, and what they basically said was that the Tomoe River paper is very thin and delicate, and environmental variables could cause issues with fountain pens. They also said that even paper that meets their quality standards may vary between production runs, and they're unable to provide a refund, replacement, or store credit at this time. And I just think this is so lame. I mean, so many people were impacted by the bad batch of Tomoe River paper, and I feel like because they have such a loyal customer base that they really should have done something. Store credit at the very least. I mean, this was $14. They could have given me $14 of store credit to buy, my next planner at the very least. So I was pretty frustrated about that. Not very good customer service at all. I kind of wish instead they would have said that, like, oh, this is beyond 30 to 90 days. We can't help you. I just feel like I would have been able to accept that so much more. I don't know. It just didn't really sit right with me. And it's just so frustrating because I am a lover of Hobonichi. I have Weeks. I have several other products. This is my 3rd year in Hobonichi Weeks, and I'm still planning to get another Hobonichi Weeks planner, but man, their customer service kind of sucks. So, not sure what I'm going to do with this. It's just going to be sitting around for now. Thought about getting a different notebook, and then I saw these two, and I thought, well, maybe I should just use what I have already on hand because I don't have plans for these yet. So, this one here is a non-bull notebook, and this is in, what color is this? Coffee brown, I think. Yeah, I really adore these notebooks. I have another one here. This is just a plain black one, so not as pretty as this one. And I use this for my skill building notebook. And it is fountain pen friendly, very thin pages. I really, really love this notebook. It is really a joy to use, and I love this paper. The only thing about these notebooks is they have a hard cover. And as you saw with my previous journal, it did chunk up quite a bit, and I just don't think that a hardcover suits chunking really well. So I decided I'm going to continue to hoard this, and maybe I'll use it another day. I have this notebook. So this is a Daigo Core notebook from their Ishoni line. So I picked this notebook up at the San Francisco Stationery Fest this year, as you can see. So I think this was sometime in the spring. I want to say like April or March. And this is from the brand Daigo Core. This just says grid notebook made in Japan. It doesn't have Daigo Core on here. I don't know if it has it anywhere. Ah, here we go. All right, so this is Daigo Core, and this is their Ishoni line. So for me, what I need from a journal is I need it to be fountain pen friendly. and I did do a test, and I'm very happy to report that this paper is fountain pen friendly. You can see that I tested with a lot of different inks. They're not all perfect, but it's pretty good. I would give it like an A minus. I would say my previous journal was an A plus, and then the one that failed for me, I'm just gonna give an F. But this one is pretty good. Only one ink has some bleeding issues, and this is with a pen that is not mine anyway, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But yeah, so this one is fountain pen friendly. I hesitated to go with this one because I don't know a whole lot about this paper or this company. So in my experience, I'm not sure how it's going to hold up with time. It just feels a little bit more of a risky commitment to make. But so far, it seems good. And I do have a pocket notebook from the same company in the same line. This also I got at Stationery Fest. It's also Daigo Core with the Ashoni line, so it's the same paper. It comes with a cute little pencil that also doubles as a bookmark. And I have been using my fountain pens in here, and I would say that it's pretty fountain pen friendly. It's a cute little notebook, but yeah, except for like every once in a while, it doesn't really have a lot of issues. So I have had a little bit of experience with this paper, and it's been pretty positive for the most part. And I've enjoyed this cute little notebook. Besides being fountain pen friendly, I need a notebook to be an A5 size. That's just what I personally really like to journal in. I need grids. This grid size is 5 millimeters, whereas before in my Hobonichi A5 notebook, I think they're closer to 3 millimeter grids. As I mentioned, this one does have a soft cover. I also need it to lay flat, and this does lay perfectly flat already. So I really appreciate that. And what's interesting about these notebooks is they have page numbers that are diagonal, and they're done in this way so that you can use your notebook either portrait or landscape, and you can still have the orientation of the page number match whatever orientation you use the notebook as. I'm just going to use portrait, but I found that was pretty cool to include. It also has an index, which I don't really plan on using, but it's there. And it has 192 pages. So I imagine that I will probably go through this one faster than my previous notebook because it has about half the number of pages. So if for some reason I don't like it as much, I'm not going to be in it for as long. So I think that I'm okay with that. And the only other thing that I'm not in love with is the paper is a little bit denser. It reminds me of Midori paper. This paper is 80 GSM, which is similar to Midori, so I do think that as I stick things in here, it's gonna get really thick really quickly. I mentioned in my Midori MD paper review, I wouldn't use a Midori notebook because the paper is so thick and I like to stick things in and I don't want it to get too thick. Well, this GSM is about the same as Midori MD paper. So while I said I wouldn't use paper that thick for a journal, I'm about to do that. So we will see how it goes. And, once I'm done with this notebook, that might help me to make a more informed decision about future notebooks for my journal. So a bit of a risky move, but at least I know that this is going to be better than whatever this was. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to create a bit of a cover page. I thought about putting like a sticker or something right here that would peek through, but I'm just not really ready to commit to something like that right now. On the first actual page, it is still kind of glued in, so I think this would be a great place to put a cover page and not actually like sit down and try to write, because this is the only page that isn't like completely flat. It really starts on the next one. So I'm going to just do a very simple cover page on camera. I've played around with like a bunch of different stickers and orienting and trying to figure out what I want to put on here, but I think I'm just going to make it really simple. I think I tried a little too hard in my previous journal and I didn't really like how it turned out. So I have an idea sketched out already. I recommend this if you are trying to create a cover page and you feel stressed about what to include on it. Maybe just try to sketch it out like different versions to see what you like. I already printed out a photo that I want to include, and then I have a pen that I want to use. I know what I want to write. Okay, so let's zoom in and I'll make the cover page. This is a little bit off center, which is fine. I will probably put a sticker here at some point, but I just don't have any right now that I'm really feeling. So I will keep this blank for now and then maybe add a sticker at some point. But that's all I really wanted to do. Like I said, my previous journal cover page was just a little bit busy. I didn't really like how it turned out, so I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. I'm not going to start my first entry today, so I'm going to leave this part blank for now, but I think it will be fun to just have like a start date and an end date, and then I can see that whenever I open this in the future. Yeah, it looks like the ink is looking really nice on here. So that's great to see. I used my husband's Pelikan M1000 with a triple broad nib with Pelikan Royal Blue. I just felt like the blue and the orange and the washi looked really nice together. I wanted to do this washi tape with the butterflies because I just feel like I'm going through a lot of changes lately with how difficult life has been. So I thought that would be really fitting. I got this washi tape at a thrift store, so I don't even know like what the brand is or anything, but I do really love it. It's got a really nice texture to it. Okay, so we are set up and ready to start documenting this next chapter of life. So I'm gonna go ahead and add her to the leather notebook, and I feel like this is gonna be so thin because there's nothing in here. Yeah, it definitely is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm also going to add this notebook as well. I've been wanting to keep this with my personal notebook. It's just my previous one was so thick that it just didn't really make sense to do that. So I'm going to add this here, and then hopefully it'll feel nice and full. So I have my skill building notebook here, my new personal journal, and that feels really nice. Okay, so that is my new notebook all set up. I'm so excited to start writing. It just feels like a nice, fresh start. I'm just really hoping to document some positive memories in my life. I'm sure it will have a lot of ups and downs, just like my last one, but I'm very excited to get started on it and break it in. So thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to know if you have any experience with the Daigo Core Ashoni products. If you do, let me know how it's been going for you down below in the comments, because it would be really nice to have some expectations going in other than going in blindly like I'm already doing. I would also like to know if you have finished a notebook from cover to cover. How did it feel for you? Did you feel as mixed and complex about it as I do? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!